So, ladies and gentlemen, we all remember the early 90s and most of the decade. Michael Mann was a director that dealt a lot with action movies. Now, in this case, with this, not say remake, but a tie-in to the old Randolph Scott version, there was two minds in the production and the announcement of it, and two minds after it was released. How accurate would it be, and was the romantic side of the book it was based on be more prevalent than accuracy? Because anytime you're dealing with Aboriginal legends or U.S. or British versions of Aboriginal stories, we're going to talk about the 1992 release of what has been probably one of the what I call the forgotten action movies of the 1990s, even though it's beloved by many. The Last of the Mohicans. Now, The Last of the Mohicans came out in 1992, again directed and produced by Michael Mann. Screenplay was by Michael Mann and Christopher Crowe, and it was based on, again, The Last of the Mohicans, book by James Fenimore Cooper, the classic, and The Last of the Mohicans by Philip Dunn. Now, a very, very strong cast of English, Aboriginal, and Irish, UK actors and actresses. The lead, of course, played by the very handsome Daniel Day-Lewis. Madeline Stowe plays the main female lead, and the Aboriginal activist and actor Russell Means is in the movie. So, just a reminder, Daniel Day-Lewis plays the lead actor, or the lead character called Hawkeye. Now, it's based on the French Indian Wars of the mid-1750s. Now, the release in September 25th, 1992 came a month after it was released in Europe. Now, it was met with mostly positive reviews and almost doubled its take at the box office. At the time, $40 million was a lot for a movie, but it made double that back in rentals throughout the world. Very big hit on, if I'm not mistaken, extended VHS and DVD. I've seen versions of the movie at 117 minutes, and it did win an Academy Award for Best Sound. The sound in the movie is tremendous, and the soundtrack features such great composers and performers as Trevor Jones, Randy Elliman, and of course the important Irish band Clannad. Now, the main theme of the movie is taken from the tune "The Gale" by Scottish singer-songwriter Dougie MacLean. Now, the plot of the movie is that British Army Major Duncan Hayward arrives in Albany, New York, during the midst of the French Indian War. He is assigned to serve Colonel Edmund Monroe, the commander of Fort William Henry in the Adirondacks. He is tasked with escorting Monroe's two daughters, Cora and Alice, to their father. Before they leave, Hayward asks Corey to marry him, but she does not give him an answer. Now, a Mohawk named Magua is tasked with guiding Hayward, the two women, and a troop of British soldiers to the fort, but he's actually a Huron and leads them to an ambush because the Mohawks and Hurons were battling at the time. Now, the Mohican Chingachgook, his son Uncas, and his white adopted son Hawkeye kill all of the Hurons except Magua, who escapes. The trio agrees to take the woman and Hayward to the fort. Now, during the trek, Cora and Hawkeye are attracted to each other, as are Uncas and Alice. They find the fort under siege by the French and their Huron allies. When they sneak in, Coral Monroe is surprised to see his daughters. Hayward becomes jealous of Hawkeye, and Cora tells him she will not marry him. Now, Monroe refuses the honor agreement that the militiamen could leave to protect their homesteads if they were threatened. After Hawkeye helps them sneak away, he is arrested for sedition and sentenced to hang. However, without reinforcements, Monroe is forced to accept French General Louis-Joseph de Montcalm's offer. The British can leave the fort honorably with their arms. Magua is furious because this robs him of his chance to kill Monroe, against whom he bears a grudge. Now, once Monroe with soldiers and civilians leave the fort, Huron warriors attack and massacre them. Magua personally kills Monroe by cutting out his heart. Rough scene. A lot of people remember that. Now, Hawkeye, Uncas, and Chingachgook fight their way out, taking Cora, Alice, Hayward, and a few others. They hide in a cave behind a waterfall, but Magua catches up with them, capturing Hayward and the women. Magua takes his three prisoners to a Huron settlement. While he's addressing a sashim, Hawkeye walks in unarmed to plead for their lives. The paramount chief rules that Hayward is to be returned to the British, and Alice be given to Magua for the wrongs done to him by Monroe, and Cora be burned alive. Although Hawkeye is told he may leave in peace for his bravery, he offers to take Cora's place. Hayward, who was acting as interpreter, instead trades his life for Cora's. Now, after Hawkeye and Cora leave the village, he shoots Hayward as he is being burned alive. Chingachgook, Uncas, and Hawkeye then pursue Magua's party to rescue Alice. Uncas races ahead, but is killed in personal combat by Magua. Alice then leaps to her death, despite Magua's attempt to dissuade her. Eventually, Hawkeye and Chingachgook slay some of the Hurons. Then Hawkeye holds the rest at bay, while Chingachgook duels and kills Magua. Afterwards, Hawkeye and Cora watches Chingachgook praise the Great Spirit to receive Uncas, proclaiming himself the last of the Mohicans. Now, the whole movie has aspects of what he call First Nation, First Settlers violence. Some people complained that the movie was a little bit too over the top, and it was kind of playing the romance and action card over real history. But for a lot of people, what really stood out was the accuracy in the costumes and props. Now, especially the tomahawks and their knives, and a lot of the items that are shown in the movie have been accepted as traditional as you can find in the modern storytelling. Now, there's also, development scenes where they're showing the war clubs. Now, costumes were originally designed by Academy Award winner James Atchison, but for some reason, and I read about this in Premier Magazine, he left the film and had his name removed because of artistic differences with Michael Mann. Now, designer Elsa Zamparelli was brought in to finish. Now, having big actors like Wes Studi and Russell Means in it gave some legitimacy, because you got to understand, with Dances with Wolves and Last of the Mohicans and some of the outer pro-Aboriginal movies at the time, 1990s, any type of positive depiction of the Aboriginal experience, even though stretching the facts, were considered. And Wes Studi has since received an honorary Oscar, as we all know. So this was one of the films that drew him to international attention, because he also did various traditional storytelling movies. Now, ironically, most of the film was lensed in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, even if it's supposed to be upstate New York. Now, locations include the beautiful Lake James and the Biltmore Estate. Now, some of the waterfalls are used in the movie for some of the more dramatic scenes, including Hooker Falls, Tripper Falls, Bridal Veil Falls, and High Falls, which are the DuPont recreational forests. Now, the set of Fort William Henry was actually constructed on forestry land, or clear cut, adjacent to Lake James in North Carolina. And a major highway, 126, which ran between the set and the lake, had to be closed for the duration of the film. I think filming was quite a few months. Now, when it was released in the U.S. after that European early release, almost 2,000 theaters, it was #1 in the box office. And when our gentleman who requested actually this podcast, he made references to the fact that Gladiator had that same type of impact on the action fans of their area. Now, on its first weekend, it made about $11 million, and by the end of its domestic run, it made about 75 to 80. Some people say low 80s, depending on what rentals you believe. Now, it was the 17th highest grossing film of 92 in the U.S. Now, I talked about the alternate versions. I've seen cuts go at 120 minutes, 114, but I guess some scenes were added for more clarity and kind of, not say expanding the violence, but explaining what was going on. Now, the critics praised it for many things, especially for cinematography and music. I didn't see it in theaters, but I heard a bunch of my media pals, it was probably as close you're going to get to an epic and not being an epic. Now, Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times gave the film 3 stars, which is a thumbs up, and he said, it's quite an improvement on Cooper's all but unreadable book, and a worthy successor to the Randolph Scott version. Randolph Scott, Going on to say The Last of the Mohicans is not as authentic as uncompromised as it claims to be. It's more of a matinee fantasy than it wants to admit, and probably more entertaining as a result. So it seemed like it wasn't a movie for kids, but a lot of people went to see it on matinees because it was a good, 2 hours of storytelling. And I don't think the Washington Post gave it justice because Des and Howe call it a glam opera and an MTV version of gothic romance. All my friends and family who went to see the movie did not think of MTV. They just say, look how good Daniel Day-Lewis looks with Madeline Stowe, and Studi and Russell Means had their female fans as well. Now, Rotten Tomatoes has a certified fresh rating of it at 93%, based on reviews from 41 critics, and a movie-going average of 7.74, which is kind of 4 stars out of 5. So it's well recognized by the public. You rarely see it on TV anymore, though. I'm not seeing it on most Canadian channels. Now, the site's consensus, Rotten Tomatoes, calls La Casa de Mohicans a breathless romantic adventure that plays loose with history like every movie ever done forever, and comes out with a richer action movie for it. Now, the Hawkeye character obviously means a lot to different people. Now, Daniel Day-Lewis wasn't the Daniel Day-Lewis of the modern era. He was doing different parts. So to see someone that's like that from that UK, Irish, Scottish, Wales aesthetic playing Hawkeye, not say it was typecasting, but only a few actors in 1992-93 could have played Hawkeye. Tom Cruise couldn't play Hawkeye. He was too short. Brad Pitt wasn't Brad Pitt at the time. Brad Pitt was only big later on with Interview with a Vampire and Seven and Legends of the Fall. But the cast itself, you look at some of the supporting cast. Terry Kinney's in it. Pete Postlethwaite, who is on almost every, Irish, Scottish, Wales movie. Cole Meady from Star Trek fame is in it. He's in everything. So I think the cast and everybody together, it was a great creation. But if you're an Aboriginal person or you're a person of history, you're watching the movie is just a popcorn movie. It's not supposed to explain the whole aesthetic of what I call the pre-1812 generation, because War of 1812, there's never been a really movie that's describes the war they were in. Now the 1757 motif, obviously they're taking cultural or expansion reference to what it was. But for the people that love this movie, they really love it. And the people that didn't get it, they really don't, it doesn't cross their mind. But in the 1990s, Last of the Mohicans is a movie that has impacted a lot of people. And the fact is, no movie in 1990s is comparable to 2020. Politically incorrect, I'm not talking about. The fact was, you had a more expansion of the possibility of what a theme would be. Even with Titanic, I don't think everything that's in Titanic happened on the book. It was happened on the ship. It was an expansion. So this is my theory, ladies and gentlemen. Last of the Mohicans prepped a lot of people for Titanic. Okay? Think about this for a second. There's a romance. There's, not say unrequited love, but they're both fighting for love, and there's like a lot of people involved. And the studio system when Randolph Scott did the original, there was a lot of affection towards even the term Last of the Mohicans. Last of the Mohicans, again, one of the most popular books of all time, and we're still talking about it in 2020, decades and decades and decades and decades after it was first released. So that shows you something. So for me, I might go back to watch the movie. I've seen it in scenes, the slow motion attack scenes and stuff. But if you're looking at the total aspect of scenes from the 1990s, from action movies, you got to put a few scenes of Last of the Mohicans, in my opinion. And for the people that saw it, my family, well worth it. I think back then it was $6 to see a movie, and one guy said, I might go see it again. And that's the best thing you can see about a movie. You love the movie, you're not going to be hurting to see it a second or third time. And a lot of people like this movie better than Braveheart and Dances with Wolves, because Daniel Day-Lewis, for a lot of people, is more popular now than Mel Gibson was back in the year. Daniel Day-Lewis's increase in value as a popular actor. I drink your milkshake, as we like to say. Have a good one. Bye.